Have you ever been so shocked that your heart skipped a beat? What if I told you that one day you could be so shocked that your heart stops beating for good? That might sound like a plot device from a horror movie, but it's actually a real phenomenon that has been recorded throughout history. In fact, there are plenty of documented cases of people dying suddenly from fright or bad news, which makes it seem like some people have a death wish. But now we can explain these mysterious deaths with science. Turns out all it takes is one tiny electrical hiccup to turn a person into a vegetable. And yes, even the strongest, most resilient hearts can be brought down by a single shock. Now that doesn't mean you have to worry about getting zapped by a lightning strike or something. It just means that the heart is a lot more delicate than you might think. In a healthy person, the heart beats in a regular rhythm thanks to a group of cells in the right atrium that act like a metronome, sending out electrical signals that tell the heart to contract and pump blood around the body. But here's the thing. The heart is so sensitive that even a tiny electrical impulse can throw it off its regular beat. If the heart goes into what's called ventricular fibrillation, it basically becomes an ineffective pump because instead of pumping blood, it quivers. That means no blood gets to the brain, and after a few seconds you pass out and die. And unfortunately, there's not much you can do to prevent it. Even if you know about cardiac arrest and the chain of survival where you perform CPR and use a defibrillator to get your heart back in a regular rhythm, it's too late once you go into ventricular fibrillation because the heart is in a state of chaos. It's like trying to fix a broken metronome by slapping it. It just makes things worse. For centuries, doctors were mystified by sudden deaths caused by strong emotions. Now we know that the culprits are miniature electrical impulses that can throw off the heart's delicate rhythm. These impulses can be triggered by all sorts of things, including stress, excitement, pain, even laughter. In 1996, researchers reported the case of a 39-year-old woman who died while watching a scary movie. In 2004, another group of researchers documented the case of a 42-year-old man who died laughing at a comedy club. It's not clear exactly how these people died, but it's likely that they went into ventricular fibrillation. So why does this happen to some people but not others? Well, scientists don't really know. It seems to be partly genetic, but there could be other factors at play as well. Maybe some people have a pre-existing heart condition that makes them more susceptible to sudden cardiac arrest. Or maybe those who have close calls with death become more cautious and avoid risky behavior in the future. Whatever the case, the science behind sudden cardiac arrest is a reminder that the human body is a lot more fragile than we like to think. So take care of yourself and be careful out there. You never know when you might get zapped. Thanks for watching this episode of Cho, and thanks especially to our supporters who make it possible for us to keep making these videos free for everyone forever. It's scary how fragile our bodies are. A sudden shock can stop your heart forever. But what does that actually mean? How can a broken heart kill you? Is it actually possible to die from a punch to the chest? It turns out that the human body, especially the heart, is far more sensitive to emotion and impact than we realize. When you experience something that triggers a massive stress response, it's like the sudden death of a loved one, your body floods with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Too much of these hormones overloads the heart's electrical system, making it beat wildly and dangerously fast. If it's intense enough, this can trigger a condition called broken heart syndrome, medically known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. The heart temporarily weakens and can't pump blood effectively, which can be fatal. But it's not because the heart has been physically damaged. It's because it's in a state of shock. The heart is overwhelmed and can't do its job. But what if you take a punch to the chest at the exact wrong moment? Well, it turns out that even a small blow can be enough to stop your heart instantly. This is known as commotio cordis, which literally means beating death. A single well-timed hit can disrupt the heart's electrical system, triggering a lethal arrhythmia. It's surprisingly common in sports like boxing, where it can be fatal. Just a few seconds before a boxer's knockout, you can see their heart beat abnormally on their ECG, indicating the punch has thrown their heart off rhythm. But it doesn't always happen during a fight. Even the force of a car accident or a sudden fall can be enough to trigger commotio cordis. So these sudden deaths aren't random. They're caused by a perfect combination of timing. When the body experiences a sudden shock, whether physical or emotional, it can trigger a chain reaction that disrupts the heart's electrical system. This can cause a potentially fatal arrhythmia, disrupting the heart's ability to pump blood and leading to cardiac arrest. The fragility of the heart in the face of these external factors highlights just how sensitive our bodies are to both physical and emotional stress. It's a reminder that even a seemingly minor blow or a sudden surge of emotion can have life-threatening consequences. So be cautious and take care of yourself, because your heart is more delicate than you might think. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave us a like and subscribe for more amazing medical insights. Thank you for watching, and stay healthy. Have you ever been so scared or so happy that your heart almost stopped? You might have even felt like you were having a heart attack. Well, it turns out that sometimes when we experience really intense emotions, our hearts do literally stop beating. Since ancient times, people have died from fright. It's called karoshi, which literally means death by fear. And in China, they have the term AIs, which means death by emotion. Even today, there are documented cases of people dying from a sudden shock, often due to a previously hidden heart condition like Brugada syndrome. But some people die from a sudden shock even when there's nothing wrong with their heart. Most of us have heard of the placebo effect, where believing you're getting a helpful medicine makes you feel better. But what you may not have heard of is the nocebo effect, which is the opposite. If you believe something bad about yourself or something bad is going to happen to you, it can actually make you sick. Like if someone tells you that a certain food is poisonous, you might start to feel ill after eating it, even though it's not actually poisonous. The nocebo effect is so powerful that it's been linked to some pretty wild cases of people dropping dead from a sudden shock, even when there was nothing wrong with their heart. So why does this happen? Well, the heart doesn't really know the difference between a good shock and a bad shock. It only knows that it's getting a shock. When your body experiences any kind of intense emotion, your heart beats faster and adrenaline pumps in. But in some cases, it can pump so much adrenaline that it stops your heart altogether. That's why some people have died from laughing so hard or from being shocked, surprised, or even disgusted. And oddly enough, some people die simply from believing that they will. One Italian man even wrote down his fear of having a heart attack, and every day for 3 weeks before his 62nd birthday, he cut out the article and placed it on his bedside table. On his birthday, he experienced the worst case of anxiety he'd ever had and ended up having a massive heart attack and died. His doctors concluded that his specific and intense fear of having a heart attack triggered a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy and caused him to die from a sudden shock. These cases show just how closely our hearts are connected to our minds. They can literally break from a sudden shock, whether that's physical or emotional. So take a moment to appreciate how fragile and amazing the human body is. And if you like this video, please share for more science and tech stories. Have you ever wondered why your heart can stop beating when you get a fright? You may already know that getting a sharp blow to the chest can stop your heart, as can certain illnesses and injuries. But did you know that overwhelming emotion, belief, or grief can also be a cause? In other cases, people have died and come back to life. So here's the question. Why can a sudden shock stop your heart forever? To answer it, we need to understand how the heart works. The heart is a muscle that beats in a regular rhythm thanks to electrical signals. When these signals are disrupted, the heart's rhythm is also disrupted, leading to cardiac arrest. This is where defibrillators come in. They deliver an electric shock to the heart to restore its rhythm. But there's a catch. If oxygen is lost for too long, say 10 minutes or more, the brain dies. And this is where things get weird. Sometimes a person will die of a broken heart. In 2015, a 34-year-old woman died after watching her partner take his own life. She had no physical health problems, but she couldn't cope with the grief, and her heart literally broke. Similarly, a 21-year-old man died after seeing his friend electrocuted in front of him. He was so traumatized, he went into cardiac arrest. These cases are rare, but they do happen. Now here's another thing that's hard to explain. Sometimes people who have died come back to life. This is called the Lazarus phenomenon, and it's been happening since the 1600s when people were brought back to life after being dead for hours. Scientists don't fully understand this phenomenon, but it does happen. So why can a sudden shock stop your heart? Because our hearts aren't just pumps. They're also emotional organs that listen to our minds. When we experience intense emotions like grief, shock, surprise, or excitement, our hearts beat faster. If you've ever been so nervous that you had a racing heartbeat, you've experienced this firsthand. Our hearts respond to our emotions because our brains and hearts are connected by the nervous system. When we feel something, our brains send signals to our hearts via the nervous system. These signals tell our hearts to speed up or slow down. Sometimes the weight of a moment is too much for the heart to bear. When this happens, the heart stops beating. This is what happened to the woman who died after finding her partner's body. She was overwhelmed by grief and her heart stopped beating. It's also possible that the electric shock from the defibrillator disrupts the signals between the brain and the heart. It's causing the heart to stop beating. We don't have all the answers, but what we do know is that the heart is an incredibly powerful organ that can be undone by what it feels. So be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. Thanks for watching.